Hi, Huzaimah. I'm Ellen, and I will be correcting these essays for you. I'm really happy to see that you've signed up to the course and that you've begun your essays. That's wonderful. Let's take a look at this first set and see what you wrote. The topic is doing an enjoyable activity with a child. Let's see what you said. Children nowadays have various methods provided for them for learning and expanding their horizon, and most of the time, parents, here probably want an S, or a parent, will make a decision on which one to choose. I believe that parents should grab these ESE opportunities to do something fun and at the same time enjoy cultivating creativity and master some skills. This essay will analyze both sides of discussions and use examples from international research and common knowledge to demonstrate points and prove arguments without this S here. Okay, so other than some minor grammar points, it's a good introduction. I like it. So there's really not much else to comment on. As I said, it was good, but you did have some little grammatical things like no articles, the wrong. You had singular when you needed plural, so just be careful with that. It's important to get those right because those are pretty basic grammar points, and examiners are more lenient with higher level grammatical errors than they are with kind of basic grammar errors. So just be aware of that and be careful. Let's go on then. Firstly, I agree that teaching moments should be incorporated in daily activities and tasks. This is because the practice and lesson are best acquired when installed during happy times. All right, there's a problem here. I don't know what you mean the practice and lesson are best acquired. You don't acquire lesson and you don't acquire practice. So there's something happening here, and also installed is the wrong word. So there's a couple of instances of the wrong word. It just becomes a little awkward. And more importantly, the message is not clear. Okay, so be careful with that. Trying to see what you're trying to say. You know what? Rather than correct it, I want to move on and take a look at the rest of the paragraph, and maybe we can find an alternative here. For example, singular, some family enjoyed playing game hide and seek using Mandarin language to count as they practice their second language skill. Moreover, if the child is the one choosing the game, he is most likely at his best mood and behavior to learn. According to research done by Harvard University, children can absorb up to 90% of the total knowledge when they are delighted. Therefore, enjoying various fun activities with children should give parents the chance to boost their creativity and skills. Okay, so let's see. Should we incorporate it into daily activities and tasks? This is because knowledge and information are best acquired when taught during happy times. Maybe this is what you meant. It's a little better than the language you had here. As you could see, there were still some grammatical errors, missing S's, missing plurals, missing articles. And this was a little strange. He's at his best mood. He is most likely in a positive mood, and this too, he's at his best behavior. I suppose so, but again, it's just a little awkward. So why don't we try to change it around again? Moreover, if a child is the one choosing the game, he is most likely in a positive frame of mind to learn and on his best behavior. All right, that's a more natural way of saying this same sort of thing. So my question to you here is, what is the skill children are learning? okay, where you mentioned creativity, but you didn't really talk about creativity anywhere. And I'm wondering if you could have mentioned, let's see, reading somewhere. You see, so far, I haven't seen anything about reading. And it is written here in the introduction. There is a comparison here, fun, enjoyable activity compared to reading. So far, you haven't said anything about reading, and so you really should. So if they didn't want you to talk about reading, they wouldn't have put it here. They would have just said, doing an enjoyable activity with a child can develop good skills and creativity. To what extent do you agree? That's how they would have said it. But since they have reading here and that comparison, they do want you to talk about it. There are many ways you can do that. Okay? So now here you're talking about books. So that's exciting. The interesting thing with that is that you never mentioned anything about reading in your introduction, and you really should have. Even at this point where you say this essay will analyze both sides, what are the two sides? You haven't really told us. You simply told us that they have many methods to choose from and that they should grab this opportunity to do something fun. But you never told us what the other side is. And so that created a little bit of confusion. And since there was no mention of reading and I saw nothing even here, I was a little concerned that you weren't going to mention reading. Now I see that this paragraph is talking about reading. So we'll talk about what you need to do um, to make this more cohesive as soon as we're finished. So let's take a look at this. Secondly, books provide the largest resources of information. This is because books allow children to have powerful imagination and enhance spatial reasoning. For example, renowned child psychologist Marie Piaget did an experiment on 100 children and found out that when they were reading about airplanes, the subconscious minds imagined not just the airplane, but the sky and space exploration. Others, though, may develop their listening and comprehension skills to maturity through extensive reading and storytelling. However, this phenomenon is unfortunately prevalent only in highly educated families, IES, and not applicable in most families, IES. All right, I don't know why you would have included this. It doesn't support your argument. You're all of a sudden at the very end of the paragraph introducing this new idea that essentially weakens everything you've been saying about the value of reading. So I would not have included this. Rather than having a however here, what I would have done is having a thus. Reading provides a great amount not only of knowledge, but of opportunity to expand creativity as well. That would have been more relevant and that would have been more in line with what you actually developed in your paragraph. Now, another thing that we need to talk about is your linking devices in the beginning of the paragraph. Here you said firstly, here you said secondly. That's appropriate only when you are arguing the same side of the argument. But here you had contrasting sides of the argument, so you needed to use something else. A common set of linkers that lots of students like is on the one hand and then on the other hand. You can use these two only together, not just one of them, but they would have been very appropriate here. Okay, so that's something you have to think about. This is something that would affect your coherence and cohesion score. I want to look at your conclusion, then we can talk more about this. To conclude from the examples and arguments given, I firmly agree that every learning institution, no S here, should adopt ways of making lessons, S, more entertaining. In the future, this approach in educating our future generations will eventually displace traditional ways of learning. Okay, this is not the appropriate conclusion for this essay. I kind of want to read your second essay because this sounds like it belonged to that essay instead. Right. So it didn't really belong here. And let me tell you why I say that. Because you mentioned nothing about reading. You didn't mention anything about creativity or fun activities. So Um, it's not relevant. I felt like this actually belonged to the other essay. And this wasn't about learning institutions. This was about parents and enjoying their, um, and families and enjoying an activity with a child. So all of this felt really irrelevant to me. So again, it's something that would affect your coherence and cohesion score because it's not linked to anything you wrote in the essay. Um, okay, the other thing that I want to talk to you about is your introduction and how and where you should have incorporated this idea of reading in this introduction. So let's see how we could have done that. Children nowadays have various methods provided for them for learning and expanding their horizon. And most of the time, parents will make a decision on which one to choose. I believe parents should grab these opportunities to do something fun and at the same time enjoy cultivating creativity and yeah, it's all about, it's really interesting because when you read this, it's as if you're talking 100% in favor of the fun activity. And I have to really rewrite a number of things in order to include this idea of reading in here. But you can see that then this will analyze both sides, doesn't work. So I do want to try it again so you can see an example of what that would look like. So children nowadays have various methods provided for them for learning and expanding their horizon, including enjoyable games and activities, as well as reading. Okay? And then, I believe parents should grab all of these opportunities to do something fun, or rather, I believe parents should grab these opportunities to do something fun and at the same time encourage reading so children can cultivate creativity and master some skills. So, do you see? I'm throwing that idea of reading in here. It really should be included. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this essay. As you can see, there's a lot we talked about in terms of coherence and cohesion, but also some task achievement. Essentially, these things fall under the category of coherence and cohesion, making sure that your essay is a unified whole where with ideas that link to each other naturally. You have to think of your essay as a chain where each link kind of connects to the next. All right, and so that's what I'm trying to do here. All right, let's take a look at the second essay, which is about schools and if they should be more entertaining. Contents of education in school have been, all right, yeah, you see one of hot topics. That's awkward. The content of education in school, it's not really the content that we're concerned about. It's really the method of delivery, isn't it? Anyway, let's just go with that. The content of education, you know what? Let's try it again one more time. So the content in school has been one of the hot topics for debate over the years, and everyone is eager to express their viewpoints. I believe that children should be allowed to assimilate the learning in the most creative and joyful ways possible. This essay will analyze both sides of discussions. No, this essay will analyze both sides of the discussion and use examples from famous psychoanalysts or from a famous psychoanalyst and common school activity to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Again, you're not clear here on what the topic is. I understand that you're trying to rephrase and use your own language, and that's wonderful. That's what you should be doing. However, what's happening is we're missing part of what this topic is about. There is nothing about strictly academic versus entertaining. And so it's difficult to know what these both sides are. We don't know what they are. Okay? Because all you've told us so far is the content of school. So this is something you really need to fix. You need to make sure that it's a more accurate representation of what the task is so that it makes sense when you say both sides of the argument. Firstly, I agree that play should be incorporated in school. This is because, according to Sigmund Freud, through play, children express themselves. Also, play can build character and social skills. For example, role play games allow children to foster interaction, analyze social cues, and master public speaking. Therefore, although school's main purpose is to educate, it should be interesting enough for the students to learn. All right, this is okay. Grammatically, it's correct, but there are a couple of issues that I want to talk to you about. The first one is that it feels rather short. I think you should have developed it a little more. It should have had a little more development. It should have had a little more content. Entertaining. So rather than just more play, maybe you could have talked about the lesson itself and how that could have been delivered in a more entertaining way. So maybe students could do role plays. Maybe they could, play games in the classroom or, dealing with the course material. So this felt a little underdeveloped. Like you didn't really have a lot to say about it. So that's one thing. The second thing that I want to talk to you about is all of these linking devices. Check this out. Firstly, also, for example, therefore, it's too much. These are called front position markers, and there are the sign of a band 6 in coherence and cohesion. It's always a good idea to include some of these in your writing, but you don't want them to be in almost every sentence. You need to use them sparingly, okay? So not in every sentence for sure. What you want to do instead is like this. This is because. That was a good example of cohesion, because this refers back to that previous sentence. So what do I suggest? I wouldn't have started with firstly. I would have started with something like, it is true that play should be incorporated in school. This is because, according to Sigmund Freud, through play, children express themselves. In this way, they can also build character and social skills, and then have for an example. But you can see that I just got rid of two of these linkers, and yet I made your writing stick together and link together with a little more ease, a little more finesse. Let's take a look at your next paragraph. Secondly, for most children, learning happens at work while at home. I don't understand that. At work, I don't understand that. Especially without adult supervision. What? Secondly, for most children, learning happen at work while at home, especially without adult supervision. Children probably end up watching TV all day. I don't understand that sentence. Yeah, I really don't know. Let's move on. Moreover, it is a teacher's sole job to teach, as they are trained, qualified, and competent to do so. However, lessons taught by a trained educator will still be difficult to understand if it is forced down on the students. A recent study showed that student-centered classrooms created for independent learning and play are preferred by up to 80% of pupils in Finland as compared to traditional classrooms. Hence, schools should incorporate some entertainment while educating to maximize knowledge acquisition. Okay. Let's continue and we'll talk more about this. To conclude from the examples and arguments given, I firmly agree that every institution should adopt ways of fun learning. In the future, traditional ways of teaching will be abolished. All right, fine. So let me tell you what my concern was. Clearly, this sentence was a problem. I didn't understand it, so it was just incoherent for me. But the other problem is this. Again, remember what I told you before about making sure that your essay is one cohesive whole. You said that you were going to discuss both sides of the discussion. You never really talked about this idea of schools being solely for education. Not really. I mean, like I said, I didn't understand this sentence. Here you said something about teacher's sole job is to teach, but then the rest of this dealt not with why schools should not be more entertaining, but it talked about basically why they should be more entertaining. So you didn't talk about both sides. Okay? Um, okay, so for your first essay correction, I think I've given you a lot of information, a lot of things to think about. So let's talk about what your next steps are. Your first step is to correct these essays based on the suggestions in this video. The second step is for you to create an error correction list where you write the mistakes and the correct version next to the mistakes. That's a list you're going to add to with each essay correction you get back, and it's something for you to learn from. The third thing you're going to do is write us a new set of essays, incorporating everything from the videos, from the course, and really trying to apply everything into that next set. So send us all three things together. Try to do it in the next day or so you can keep up your momentum. And we'll meet back here with that next set of essays, okay? So good luck, and I'll be waiting for your next set.